I now call on Carolyn Briggs to address the Assembly.
Come on, I feel like I'm a little bit tall after all this. So firstly, I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional owners and also pay my respects as part of the First Peoples of this land, of the Bunwurrung of the Greater Kulin Nation. I stood for the election because I believed in that this was another way of the opportunity of moving forward and looking back over the ancestors that went before us. So it is about Wabanjika Wurrungi Bik, the law of the land. So it is about that and the election to the Assembly to provide a voice to the Victorian traditional owners and the wider Victorian Indigenous communities. I also want to acknowledge and celebrate the role of the Victorian nations, clans and families, and who played a major part in protecting and maintaining and celebrating the rich cultural heritage. It has been their voices, their struggles for the truth that has allowed us to achieve what we have today. We often hear people talking about our culture and heritage, but I rarely hear about the strong Black or Aboriginal women and men whose struggles have been responsible for the protection and the development and the maintenance of our cultures, our great cultures. And it's time for this contribution by the nations, clans, families across Victoria to be acknowledged and to be celebrated. It is our mothers, fathers, grandmothers, great-grandfathers who have often been at the front line in protecting our children and their birthright. They protected and maintained the knowledge through their genealogies and stories. They negotiated with outsiders in order to protect their families. They stood up to the tyranny of oppression. And it is a voice that our ancestors has protected and kept our culture alive. We must reclaim that voice and use it to continue to protect our heritage. We need to ensure that it is our voice that is heard. It is not just the voices of governments and bureaucrats, but we want to fight for a genuine treaty, and that it will only ever be achieved when our voice is heard and respected. The treaty should be a compact with our ancestors to ensure that their voices are still heard and that in their memories protected. I also believe that the truth is also an important element of the treaty. Truth is remaining true to our culture and our heritage. Truth is not something that is fabricated in support of government bureaucrats. The truth must be told, and we must stay vigilant in our stories, which it will be remembered forever. Our parents, our grandparents and our great-grandparents have all been a part of the struggle that has required them to work together for this shared future. This can only be reflected by the actions from the early days of colonisation and those ones who fought. They fought to keep our families and clans together. They fought to access education for their children. They fought to set up health and legal services that sometimes we can take for granted today. They fought so that we can benefit from this shared futures. We also need to respect the knowledge of the roles of those men and women who are still with us. These are the generations of elders who have been in the forefront for many decades. And sometimes we take these elders for granted without remembering where would be without their courage and their commitment. It is one of our great pleasures to see our young people who achieve great outcomes because of the work of their mothers and their fathers and their grandparents who made the struggle possible. And because of this, we can celebrate our lawyers, doctors, teachers, craftsmen, artisans. These are all about our collective narratives. But many of the freedoms we can also take for granted were the hard-fought victories of strong, stubborn, persistent black women and men
I think
who never gave up.
I think 2 minutes are up. Thank you, Carolyn.